everybody, and welcome to Tremco CPG Live. We are once again on the road and I'm very excited to do that. I am Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco, and I'm very excited to be joined once again by two of my feet on the street as it relates to those partners in performance all across the US and Canada, specifically today. So I have two co-hosts. So Paul, once again, Paul Hugenboom, will be joining us back again shortly. I think in September he will be back with us again. And until then, I'm very excited to have these two co-hosts with me today. So the first one is from an area, it's not too far from me. I guess I could drive there, but it'd be quite a distance. But Governor Dodge State Park is a very famous area just north of his city. Population is pretty small, about 4,693, and it's called an unglaciated area because the glaciers kind of skipped over this area. So you can imagine the terrain and the beautiful hiking and fishing and all of the stuff that's located in this area. The other one is coming to us a little north of here, north of Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm at, of course. He is located at the base of Mount Brome. Population there is 7,649. Once again, lots of wonderful outdoor activities, and I think he's pretty darn close to one of our manufacturing facilities in Granby. So welcome today, both Justice Olson and Eric Lemire. Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good morning.
So Eric, where are you? I know you're not actually at that base of Mount Brome today or near Granby. Where are you actually physically at today?
Well, today I'm in transit. I'm in front of a charging station trying to get my little electric car charged up. But I'm on a return to 2-week trip from the Atlantic provinces. So we did a little scoop around the Moncton area in New Brunswick and also Charlottetown and Prince Edward Island. So right now I'm just about not too far away from the Canadian-New Brunswick border right now. So heading home.
Very good. Well, good safe travel to you. Glad you are able to join us today. Justice, how are you today? Where are you at?
I'm well, thanks for asking. I am in Dodgeville, Wisconsin, home of the first governor, Governor Dodge of Wisconsin, and that's where the park's named from. You're right, unglaciated. The glaciers just kind of went right around our little area, so a lot of rock outcroppings and rolling hills, great hiking trails. And so I'm in my home base today.
And I know you are, you've lived and are building an ICF home, so he is a wealth of knowledge and walks the talk as it relates to building with Nudura. So that's very exciting to have you both on. So guys, today I have you both on representing those feet on the street. Also, just to be able to give some people some more information as it relates to insulated concrete forms. As everybody knows on Tremco CPG Live, it's a short broadcast. So we want to be provocative in our approach. You know, these are just two more of those resources, those feet on the street that can help you out. If you are very familiar with insulated concrete forms, that is great. If you are not, we're going to share with you some commonly asked questions as well as lots of resources for you. If you are familiar with insulated concrete forms, and maybe not Nudura specifically, we also wanted to make sure that you are aware of the innovative technology that exists with the insulated concrete forms from Nudura. So we're pretty excited to have these guys, these feet on the street, added to our offering and more of those touch points on all of your projects. So check out that innovative technology. There's a lot of wonderful steps that have been taken in terms of insulated concrete forms. So it's not, you know, the insulated concrete forms that maybe your grandfather used. So the Duramax technology being the longest units that exist, the 4-way reversible corners, the Durapol technology, and of course that Dura lock technology are some of those key features that we wanted to make sure everyone is well aware of. As it comes to some of the questions we get, we have heard you. So we wanted to make sure that these two guys, these two feet on the street, can help out with that. So the first question we have up today is, are there limitations in terms of climates where ICFs can be built in? Justice, how about you kick us off with this one?
Yeah, the answer real quick is no. In fact, it's an enabler. It extends that building season. A few examples for me over the past 20 years have been, the most recent one is a net zero school in North Dakota that was built through the winter. The general conditions budget allowed for $45,000 in heating conditions. They used 15,000, so the owner got back the 30,000 in that general conditions. Probably 12, 14 years ago, we had bid a project and and it came in over budget. So the first thing they wanted to remove was the ICF and go back to a CMU. They quickly identified that with the winter heat conditions, ICFs were now cheaper by about $50,000 or $60,000 on about 35,000 square foot of ICF. So when we look at the extension of that building season, we have a few components. It's being able to continue that, maintain a schedule, impact general conditions or supervision, and not slow the project down and keep timelines. So it's impactful 4, 5, 6 different ways sometimes. But even in the hot conditions in the southern climates, it's just as important to have an envelope that protects you from heat, not just cold. So yeah, it does. It's an enabler for year-round construction.
Exactly. Well, and I know if you're doing some research here, it takes a lot more energy to cool a building than it does to heat it. So even much more, right? Just like you said, it's not just about those cold climates that the three of us are representing mostly in our geographical locations, but also those warm, sunny climates that can truly benefit from this type of construction, and as well as that resiliency that you could get for some of those hurricane zones as well. Okay, next question, Nudura versus wood. So insulated concrete forms versus wood. I know there's so much we could say. We could probably do a whole segment on this, but Eric, tell us a little bit about what your impressions or what you believe are those true benefits comparing it to wood construction.
Well, what we're running into a lot here is it touches a little bit back on what what Justin just alluded to, is that constructing during the winter. When we work here, we could be easily within the minus 30 degrees Celsius range. And so having the concrete being exothermic, it could protect itself. So we don't have to protect the structure nearly as much as we're working during the winter time. So that's an advantage for us. But what I tend to allude to more so is that there's less overlapping of trades. And there's also less hybridization, we could say, of different types of techniques overlapping one upon the other. So if you have a continuous envelope from footing all the way to underneath a structure, and you don't have a huge magnitude of different elements that have to interact with one another, I think that's a humongous value. And then just the fact of having less overlapping trades is also another big advantage. The volatile pricing of materials these days, barring that, I still think that having the simplification, the purified system of the wall itself is so much easier, so much quicker, so much more rapid to weather in the building and be able to work from the inside as we're closing up towards winter time. And then, summertime, there'll be other types of elements too, in regards to that. It's got that thermal resistance that will help cooling, like you mentioned earlier. So for me, it's just a refinement of materials. You got a lot less different moving parts or, hybridization of parts together. So it's just a refinement of materials and refinement of the building process. That's what I think is the most advantage.
Well, it's interesting. I keep learning so much from all of you, and just the simple part of when you put down an insulated concrete form, you've already got the insulation there, right? And then you're going to put your concrete in the middle. So it's like, I can't, that's in such a simple way how great that is. And then that continuity, you guys know, I spent a lot of my time in the air barrier world talking about continuity and how do we get continuous insulation? Well, how much easier are you going to be able to do that with insulated concrete forms in every corner, in every transition, and all the way up that wall without those floors coming in between. So amazing opportunities there. Next up, we have Nudura. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, but I do find that basically on these visits that I do, I hear is that because the system's not complicated, for some reason, people can't understand it. It's almost that it has to be complicated for someone to think it's actually working. So it's easy to make it complicated, but it's difficult to make it simple. So I find sometimes that's something that we have trouble communicating.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just it. I think if we polled, the individuals out there, a lot of the design professionals I've talked to, they just don't have a lot of experience with insulated concrete forms. So I'm hoping that in many ways, a lot of the presentations you guys give and your ability to get out there is really going to help in terms of that awareness. How are we looking when we compare to CMU, Justice? And I know you just mentioned that in one of the projects where they were going to go back to CMU. So you've touched on that a little bit already.
Yeah, so I kind of want to touch base on what you just said, compare. What am I comparing really? First of all, as a mason might come in and set that foundation or that corridor wall, he's only doing the corridor wall. He's not doing a furring strip or an insulation or an air barrier. When we look at that, and we do even a cost comparison, we have to add in divisions 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 thermoplastics. A mason's going to hit division 4. That's all he's doing. We need to take a look at what is going to be included, what is not included. The other is when it's raining or misting, I can continue to build. I'm not limited by height in a pour day. So they may stack 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet, but that grout line or that mortar joint is actually got to start to set up because they weigh 50 pounds, 40 pounds. They can only build so high, so they're limited on output per day. Again, it's usually one tender to 2 masons, and you might have 30, 40 on there. It's not that they don't do a good job, it's just 50 pounds of swinging around a CMU block, limited to height. They're limited by production just because that's the product. Again, no R-value. They can put in insert billets, but they still have that thermal bridging aspect coming, and that transfer is going to come through. So the extension of the building season, they're going to tent in the fall and winter conditions. We're not going to do that. Again, at the end of the day, it may look like it's less expensive because a modular unit might be $2, but you're still only about a third of the way through to get what you really need to be just code compliant. So again, limited by stackable days, winter conditions, and at the end of the day, there's no air barrier, there's no insulation, there's no furring strips. We have that 6 steps into one trade. So there's other aspects, and we'll dive into that probably later down the road as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next up is your R-value. Who wants to take the R-value? Eric?
Well, I could touch a little bit that it plays in factors with us in the northern climates. The maximum R values, I mean, you can depends how much space you've got on your land. You could bump it out as much as you need to go. But what we like to have is a little bit of an idea of, are we looking for a performance value or a prescriptive value? Here in Canada, we're focusing a lot, at least in Quebec, where the region I focus in. They tend to trend more towards the prescriptive values, and so we have to add 1 + 1 + 1, and that's going to be their value. I'm trying to push more so, and our codes are going more towards a performance type of value, which different types of tests will evaluate R values that exceed quite a bit more than the prescriptive values. So for me, I don't have the maximum R values that you need to get, because there will be a tipping point. There is an overload that we can get to. So the code will always dictate what is going to be the minimum amount that we need to have human comfort inside of a building, have them safe. And then again, the tipping point will, for us, turns around maybe R32, at what point people don't think that they're going to have as much of a return value. So again, it will depend where we are, different types of zones. At West Coast is a temperate climate, is it Arctic, is it really cold? And so for us, it's not necessarily what the maximum R value is, because we can assemble, we could laminate, we could insert different types of different sizes of inserts inside of our foam. So we can adjust the different sizes to get the prescriptive values that's required for different types of projects. So we have maybe about 5 different zones, and for us, they range from 4 to up to an 8, and these 8s can ask for over R30 just as a minimum. So it all depends on where the building is being built. We could always accommodate that. The architect would need to accommodate for the extra thickness in the EPS to achieve the R value needed to have. So that's the only limitation we have, is the design. Are they willing to accept a certain thickness to achieve that design? But that's when they don't take into effect the thermal mass inside of the concrete. So hopefully they'll go towards performance values, and we can get them down a little bit thinner.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of it, right? Is that true performance that you're going to get. And I know, Justice, you mentioned this earlier too. We're not dealing with the thermal bridging that you're going to see with a lot of other types of construction methods. So you're going to get that true R value and more because of the thermal mass that we're seeing with these types of construction. I know this is a newer product, so XR35 being able to add that higher R value, and I love it. It's the ability to dial in to what the performance needs are, the location. So once again, giving people that option is great. Maximum height. So I think, hopefully we're getting away from people thinking that, insulated concrete form, that's for my basement, right? So I think we're getting past that. but I also think people are thinking restrictive in their height. Justice, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, each floor assembly is pretty much a diaphragm, if you look at it that way. And people think that they can't do 50 feet. Well, I'm not going 50 feet before I hit a floor assembly, right? I'm going to stiffen that wall up, and I'm just going to use layman terms, but I'm really only going 10 or 12 feet, maybe 14 or 15. Fairly easy to accomplish with reinforced concrete walls. And then they worry about, can I go 10 stories or 12 stories? Yeah, you get a pump that can go that high, or a line pump, and we can do it. You're not limited on height with vertical concrete. Some of the biggest buildings in the world are a combination of either concrete or steel and concrete. So it offers great shear. If we need more shear, we can put a demising wall in, a corridor wall in, create the diaphragms inside the stairwells, elevator shafts. Very, very creative, but it's not strategic, right? It's just placing concrete in locations that can offer a magnitude of situations. Now, I look at the cladding on this building, and you're not limited by cladding. NFP 285 is going to come into play, but we have ways around that as an industry, and building design is one of them. So I don't want people to get the impression because it's concrete, it's cold, damp, and boxy. There's some phenomenal buildings out there, some tall buildings that are not limited just because we're concrete or ICF. So the continuous insulation is a great feature, the way it locks in and floor-to-floor connections. You'd be really surprised on what we can accomplish, and maybe actually reduce your building cost by going vertical with concrete.
Yeah, it's great. And I love how you mentioned about the constructability of it, right? That it isn't just building big and boxy. We can definitely get pretty creative with it, which brings us to something like this, right? So it isn't just big and boxy. We can get pretty creative. What about radius walls, Eric? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this one I like quite a bit because we're actually finishing up a project right now in Bromont, which is just right next door to where I'm at. It's a velodrome. It's where the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Velodrome is being housed. That's a project we're working on. It's an ellipse, and that ellipse on either side of that building, we're going to have 3 different radii inside of it. And we were fortunate enough to contribute and collaborate on this project. So these radius walls, they'll vary. I think at the base, at one end of the radius will be around 29 feet, and at the center of it, which is High Point, we're touching around 50 feet or so. And so these radius walls, sorry for the English, are very achievable. They're very easy to do. There will be a cut plan that will be necessary on site in regards to where do you cut, how much and how wide do you cut. But once that's been achieved, these things are very manipulable. They have a dexterity to them that allows you to do quite a bit of nice architectural features. And so if the building has been proposed in a different type of a structure that allows them to have this architectural language that they're trying to convey, there's no limitations necessarily for us to be able to achieve that. It's just that we have to foresee the forms before that we go ahead and we do our pours. So that's the only limitations we would have, is that people just need to comprehend it a little bit differently. You can't think about it in wood and try to build it in concrete. And so for radius walls, there's no problems with that. Having curved tops, there's no problems with that either. And so this big Olympic velodrome will actually be recognized by the IOC as one of the 5 different training centers in the world. And it will be a nice architectural feature for Quebec to look at. But it is a big elliptic building, and it's really, really pretty. And then driving it down, the images that you have here, having pools, kidney-shaped pools and things like that, there's not really a limitation to it. So no, radius walls is not an issue.
Great. I just want to add a few things. My first serpentine wall is what I call it. There is just no one radii. It goes in and out. We did a 5-foot serpentine radius wall. It had 4 or 5 different serpentines. 5 foot is a very tight radius. It worked and performed exceptional. They knew that they couldn't accomplish that with wood forms or metal ply pan forms. So that was a product of choice. Right now, and I'm going to throw a little plug in there for the Nebraska market, we have just finished erecting a ICC 500 FEMA rated storm shelter, 480 foot linear feet of an 86 foot, 87 foot radius. actually going to be in Central City, Nebraska in October. The date hasn't been released yet, but we're going to have a tour of that job site and then another school that's just up the road 30 feet, but 22 feet 6 inches, constructed in 18 days with a 5-man crew. Um, Went very fast. It is, again, an ICC 500 storm shelter. So look for that to come out again, but we're going to have a walkthrough in October, and we'll talk about that again, maybe at a later date.
I just wrote it down. I don't know if you guys saw my pen come out. I'm like, Justice, follow up with Justice. That sounds amazing. That's incredible. I mean, the storm shelter aspect of it, we haven't even gotten into that, right? Energy efficiency. I mean, like, we could keep on talking and talking about all the great benefits. And I really do appreciate all of your guidance here today. As we look at constructability and that strength, something people bring up a lot is the steel reinforcement that is used. And I know we've been doing some work in terms of fiber reinforcement. So tell me a little bit about that. I know it's not quite there yet. We've done a lot of the work, and we're going to be launching some stuff in September, but talk to me about that.
So for me, this isn't something new. My house 14 years ago had a different company, had a fiber reinforced concrete wall assembly in the above grade. We are going to have 3 options. You can have a hybrid, a total replacement, and then a below grade. So below grade is treated differently because we have unbalanced backfill there. So when I think about this as a practical installer, I know basic rebar configurations of just 16 or 18 inches on center. I'm going to have somewhere about 20-25% of my time spent just putting in rebar. With the Euclid fiber that we're ready to launch with, or getting ready to launch with, my replacement now is corners, doors, windows, louvers, penetrations. So anytime I have a punched opening, I'm going to have to reinforce with bar around it, but that's it. I'll have the ability to remove all of the horizontal or vertical steel throughout that wall assembly. So if I'm not, let's say I go at 25%, I leave in 5% for the windows, doors, and corners. 20% of my time is now spent doing something else, stacking block, putting braces on, setting windows and doors. So it's an enabler to increase the schedule, right? Don't look at it as a cost for concrete. I'm using this as a replacement to effectively create more production, and production's always the variable. The hard costs are the fibers, are the concrete. The variables are what we can control a little better. So when we can control a variable, that's the value add behind this.
It's great. It's great. It's pretty exciting. And once again, that ability for us to come together with the Tremco CPG companies and really offer that, all those different opportunities across those building enclosures. So, guys, I'm pretty excited that you were able to join me today on Tremco Live. If people are interested in learning more about it, there's lots of opportunities to do just that. We do have some on-demand classes. One of them was given by Justice, actually. So you can check those out on the Tremco website. Look under continuing education, and you will find these on-demand webinars. We have a whole series of them, and 2 in particular that are focused on the insulated concrete forms. We're also pretty excited because the 3 of us will be back, me extracting all the wonderful information from these 2 smart guys on September 22nd. On September 22nd, we will be dispelling the myths around designing and drafting with insulated concrete forms. So please register for that if you're interested. We have lots of great information on the Nudura website as well. A friend of ours, Randy White, was pretty integral in terms of putting all these trainings together, whether they're in person or online. Lots of great information for everybody there. And of course, if you're interested in joining the conversation like we did today, you can always reach out to me. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today on Tremco Live. I hope you guys have a great long weekend. Justice, relax. You've been working so hard. And Eric, hope you get home safe and sound up there near Granby. So thanks, guys, for joining me.
Thanks, Marcy. Have a great week.
Thanks for the invite. Thank you.
See ya.